You never know.
I would start with a preamble, so that maybe more people arrive. This will take 5 minutes to read, 5 or 6 minutes. So Pull Down the Northern Lights for Chandeliers moves through emotional states. A welter of images describe the block state and embodies a fluxing awareness, queries and anxiety, disturbance, eros, beauty from multiple perspectives. In this prose poetry, I wrestle with a desire to write, to end a dry state, in a writing that I think might appear fragmented, even crazed. I don't know. It's a virginal piece in that I've had no feedback on the final iteration yet. I think it's like a one-woman soliloquy or a one-act mini play. And since it's about a creative state, grappling with that, there isn't much reliance on narratorial cohesion or extended metaphors or other formal supports. You kind of throw yourself into the elements and hope the elements remain within your art after the whirlwinds pass. It's a resisting the self in its crisis of muteness. So the whole piece, in a way, is an iconoclasm of the self, a breaking apart of the silences of the self. Added to the text for visual interest are some digitally redone self-portraits that, while seemingly indulgent in a world of selfies, are anti-portraits. They're self-conscious attempts at technical issues in the structure of bone, muscle, skin, and expression, and are images of the self that the painter finds excruciating, embarrassing, and yet form an art practice where the model is free. We'll sit for 7 hours, and where I can practice working from life without photos. My influences in Pull Down the Northern Lights for Chandeliers are really some South American women writers, passionate women. Books that come immediately to mind: Brazilian Clarice Lispector's A Breath of Life, its deep interior writing. Uruguayan Marosa Di Giorgio, I Remember Nightfall, a feminine confessional magic realism, not unlike Frida's self-portraits. And Janine Peters translated that, and she's one of our poets she's just had a book published by Mosaic. And Clara, my favorite character in all literature, in Chilean Isabel Allande's The House of Spirits. Psychic, clairvoyant, Clara keeps a notebook all her life, begun during the years of muteness after her sister's death. Her notebooks form the basis of the novel, and she's magical. Birds and cats, flowers and ghosts flock to her, and spiritualists and artists crowd her doorstep. And that's a quote. All of the other characters, human and animal, living and dead, float around her. I loved her. So I was in a block of 9 years. Writing hadn't flowed since Fugue and Green. Published by Quattro, and Luciano, who published it, may zoom in later. And I wrote that in 1 month in 2011. I mean, I've written poems since then, but they were being dragged out. So in May, I decided this was it. I was going to break through this block. And so I bought a beautiful journal. gorgeous journal, and it's described in the piece. Oh, I know, I think I put that one online. Has some self-portraits in it. You know, it was on sale, and it has a stone in the middle that I'm not sure. It could be a moonstone. I don't. So I bought this book and I had it on my table. I bought it in the store and I said, "You're going to help me break through my block." And I had it on my table and I would look at it. And I finally sat down and started writing in it in May. So part of this effort to break through this, I read books on breaking blocks, and I particularly liked The War of Art, Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles by Stephen Pressfield, which talks about that sense of something mystical, that the muse is other, that your best writing flows through you. Perhaps, as Picasso said, you have to put yourself aside to paint. Also, I thought hard about what used to inspire me, about my own style of writing that had developed over 20 or more years, and which probably isn't very mainstream, although I don't know if anybody's is. What came pouring out has reminiscences of the style entitled Fury, published by Guernica in 2016, and my publisher, Michael Mirolla, is one of our fantastic features, and you'll hear from him later. It was a book I wrote in 2006 in about 3 months, working full-time and as a full-time single mother. When the muse pushes you, she is serious. I wanted her back, even if what came out was, well, you'll see when I read. Anyway, I'm happy to say it all worked. This whole like determined determination to work through whatever it was in this piece of writing. And I now have a daily writing practice and spend hours editing, and I'm very happy words are flowing again. So now, maybe, do you want to come back on, or I'll just go straight into the poem? Yeah, we're 7:15, so I'm going to dive in. I got to grab the dog. If you just give me a minute. You can't go running off. No, 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 no. No, no, you have to stay here and make no noise at all. Yeah, there's Lola. There's little Lola. She's 3.5 pounds. She was my daughter's dog. So I've had her for almost 4 years. Here it is, and I think it takes about 20 minutes to read. And I've added images to the text, etc. I'll just start. Pull down the northern lights for chandeliers. I'd dance to death to evoke it. They taste of us, beat in us, lips shape breath. Nests in the tangles, resting among live landmines, twig cups, high trees, sandstorms threaten, anxious, blocked. Insomnias of drought twist. How polish craggy utterances, glottal vibrating silences. Who in me writes, oscillating mirror portraits, holograms in air spin selves, gossamer trinkets sing in a wind of pecking birds. Do lungs breathe images, larynx, lingua, velum, labia oris? Pencil. The writing hand. Handcrafted papers. A camel-bound, embossed, stitched journal. Its oval lip sheath. Moonstone eye of prophecy. Moon auritas rise, graceful ballerinas, relinquishing words like ballerinas shedding, relinquishing words like flowers shedding, soft sapphire light floating, seeds spilling, angels of the deep, dangerous crests, surfing undertow, mad, feral, each word a wound, scars on the soul, burdens of silence. Cells float on snow pages, effluvia, this body's essence. Breath dissipates in the bleaching sun, a rune-marked woman, falling eggs in Easter baskets, burning bush of alphabets, letters on fire without heat or ash, feverish metaphors. You who understand the suffering of writing to speak, how poetries wash away each rainfall, letters line the beach in tatters, shreds torn from visions, collect the bits, bring them, stone soup for seraphs of hunger, written, unwritten log of our lives, damming up the rivers, pulp the writings, published and unpublished, a ball of words, whirl, scry the rolling sphere of the future. Everything that was, is, will be. Spinning oracle, spinning world. Consider the future. Can I stream you on Hi-Fi Premium, lossless? Storage jams, backlog of these times. To unload myself. The uncompressed music of who I do not know, of me. You can't arrive before you get there. What you hope for? Not yet. Steps left out, sequences incomplete. Airborne images need the weight of gravity of ground. Is the pen holder inside or outside the leather journal cover? One is she, the other he. I have to know. Wrap my words in codpieces, tender organs of regeneration, or chastity belts, deniers of passion. Everything moves in a circular motion. This package of writing sheets, notes, books, authors, ideas, drifts of lines, yours or mine, poetry, prose, a script, an essay, life writing, marginalia, crisscrosses, administrative purchases, accounting lists, queries for the help desk, random, but dated, a mind map scrawling through pages, under the writing, hidden writing, a life's dream time. Eros, transgressive, intent, voice of the wind, underside of the upper writing, the concealed writing exactly like the revealed, slant into the arcane, the hidden writing under the writing resists, blocks conjuring. Is entropy the ability to hide information or disperse it? In praise of shadows, who within writes, witnesses, when the glass softens, throat hoarse, its imaginary sound. Mirrors melt my reflection, seeing the seer disappear. I mime the words you hear. Stars spill on walls, curvilinear tendrils curl, threads of gold leaf shine. I am dust. Tonight my blood is dark blue, the heart pumps blackly. Reflecting on the falling teal backdrop, stray filaments fray. In a face of color, I love how white the eyes, the teeth. Is this tribute taboo? Loose a white sheet refilling in dark mode. Pink lace flutters over my eyes. Young Gangnam style Korean women and men, bubble tea. Koreatown is empty. The streets voiceless. My face as if painted under layers of cling wrap. So many wrinkles. Climbing wordlessly embroidered claret petals, the Turkish chenille curtains. These marbles, etched blue, black cores, whites like frost, heavy, tired. The night air warm for the first time this year. If those I loved in the African village of my childhood were shackled on the ocean, slaves for sale, my burning eyes of granite fury, noble peoples, the pain and anger of Black North America simmers in my soul. An anachronism, perhaps, hard to understand. You use the same palette of colors to paint black skin or white, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, Venetian red, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, titanium white. In darker skin, add more red, yellow. Lighter skin moves towards the blues, even greens. One set of paints. Dark is darker, light is lighter, is all. The light source has a bigger effect on skin color than ethnicity. I am a grain of sand in an hourglass of humidity, heat, dust, breathing pollen. Small trees splinter, crash. Branches litter the bush. Early spring, no dense underbrush. Inside his car, we gyrate fingers and tongues. My pants down when I get out, go around to his side. In the isolated parking lot on the edge, we are alone. A tan van appears, veers by as I try to pull up my jeans. They think I've peed. She is Eros, who is within the underspeaker, current, pulsive lit nerve filaments, the skin electric, alive. She speaks with a phallus in her mouth. Is it my fault if I don't have access to myself, says Clarice Lispector. Tongue scallop, a wine red bubble, strongest muscle in the body. A crimson grain of sand brushes the bones of the mouth, staining my intonations. How quickly it clots and words thicken. Ice falls from the mesosphere, streaking inner cheeks wet. I hand these incantations wrought of meteor dust to you and wait in the blue mystical light to nourish you. Push over the ridge, scale of derma or ice or sand. I never think of it as a wall of resistance, only my own laziness. Sometimes I wish to toss myself into you, speak your words, alien vowels I cannot pronounce. Mimicry, no, no silent circus. Can you hear the breath in my whispers? You've changed my life, he said in the dark park. Do poets write one poem their whole lives? Deepening the record grooves, collating an inner life, a unique mandala of the self over and over, one theme, closer each time. Mulling, I slip, diverge from the absent spring of secret writing. Tigran Mansourian's havoc, sonic bells, spectral strings, like a moving wave's ridge, a comb's teeth disentangling a coif, cresting white sea foam in my ears, my hair, a wake of timbres, sonorities of the packed complexity of us, crescendo of viola vibraphone where velvet longings call obliquely. The migraine releases and blood rains from the stars. Low, soft, sibilant, a percussion against the edges of the vocal cords. Springtime, heaven walking unfurls, an impregnated moment. A coral reef of capillaries, crimson stitches loop the brain, fragile, etheric psyche. Weave poems for mirror portraits, a double exposure. Sides that appear in the shadows, elusive landscapes, dreams, astral clouds. This is not who it began as. Then it resembled someone else, a non-particular portrait. Perhaps you know who, perhaps you don't. Is the whole story implicit in every moment, beginning to end? Hallucinating in the mirror of the eye, the room ripples subliminally, ears ring slightly, peripheral, then vanishing. Sighs, sight, touch, taste, attenuated, the senses unsleeping, thick blanket of sameness flown, thrown, parsing a painter's muslin, running fingertips over tight gauze opacities, filtering the light. In darkness, pecking cell phone, in-screen keyboard. Letters vanish, blank lines, words flutter, ballerinas in tulle, single letters seconds ago, dancing on points, tapping. Spaces grow between phantasmal phrases, sentences. The cursor leaps, possessed by Ouija board spirits, past empty paragraphs. Where is writing on these oblivious pages? The blue lake of eternity catches fire. A net of ambrosia drenches my throat in thick gold honey. Beeswax clumps glossa, a mass of waxy cells breaking away. Trachea plugs in a hole in one. Silent scream, choking, rush down the stairs. Someone will perform the Heimlich maneuver. The lane is COVID empty. Heat wave pushes in. Gasp. Keep gulping. I am sore from voicelessness. Breath denied with such speed. A futureless day. Hit pitch silence. Voice suffocates in the throat. Eyelids burn. Particles of light floaters in the dark. How dreams awaken the night. It all tilted today. A gold coffin. George laid to rest. In Toronto, a sky of black rainbows rose. Stranger to herself, she is the one the other recognizes, says Eve Joseph. Mirrors, Tinkerbells, strange particles of me and you, sienna curls, pinpoint gleam, aqua eyes, elusive tinsel, synecdotes, vanishing reflections, breath-breathing voice, sternocleidomastoid vibrations to the bone behind the ear, hips sway gentle waves. You say I terrify you. Jewels falling from lips, the larger story truer because more complicated. Writing terrifies me. Who do I write for? Your voice shapes my voice. Am I Narcissus' echo? Return the resounding, swimming in sync. Shiny buckles of ripples waft widening sonic circles. Only poems that plunge. Fireball orbits intersect in the heart. Stars pool deep in the well. She who writes, reverberating, child of light, prism radiances, lonely fragments, illumine pitch black, empty interior. Tears pulse flames in the neck. Release the vapor from your lungs. Out breath, blackout. Writings of unknowing, unknown writing, hover, no channeling. No spirits give their voice. No images dance cleverly across the page. With nothing. Joy spreads rainbows, silk the sky, or tender love whispering wrap your heart dazzling. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, that was great.
I can't find it.
Thank you, Brenda.
Oh, you can unmute your mics. I can't
Yes.
find my screen.
Yes, we unmuted here. Some of us did.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda.
Cool. I'm looking for the Zoom.
Here, but I'm munching, so I don't want my.
Oh, hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Yeah. Hi, Laura. Brenda, you have to unvideo me
Where?
because you unvideoed me before. I tried, but it said no because the host did it, so I can't do it.
I know my little window that it's gone. My Zoom window is gone. 50, there it is. Okay, so let me see here. Can I? Nope. Oh wait, no, I can't. I don't think I can unmute video. That you have to do yourself.
I did my unmute. I couldn't put the video back on. It said because the moderator did it, I couldn't get it back on.
So we've got Michael and we've got Finhai and we have I can't unmute the video.
Okay.
mute.
I'm not sure why.
We just saw you there, didn't we?
Oh, I can ask
Here.
you to start video.
Oh, I got
Is
it.
anybody else having problem with video?
I'm all set.
There you are.
Thank you.
Glenn, I could. Okay. Kath. Hi, Kath.
She's muted.
Okay. All right. So I think.
Hello,
Okay. Hi.
I'm unmuted.
Hi, Kath.
Bye.
Hi. Okay. So there is a little Q&A now, if you want, and then Elana's up.
You didn't mention Fernando Pessoa and the Book of Disquiet, but as you were reading, I was getting these images of Pessoa and his heteronyms and his different identities and the way he wrote throughout his life these fragmentary pieces that had such insight and lyricism. And that was what was coming up for me. So I was wondering if
I haven't read
you
it.
had referenced the Book of Disquiet.
I haven't read it. It sounds like I better get to it.
You would love it, I think. Yeah, lots of echoes.
Can you put
Yeah.
it in the chat?
Okay, I'll
And
put
I'll
it in the
put
chat.
later. Yeah.
Okay, chat. Here we go.
Yeah, no, I don't know the Book of Disquiet, but I love the title.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I was hearing so many incredible resonances. I'm just going to pull out here. I love the word lossless, which sounds like an invented word. And this one here,
Oh,
you
it's
can't. It's not, or it's not invented.
No.
Okay. Anyway, I love it. I'll attribute it to you. And you can't arrive before you get there, which sounds to me a lot like Kafka. Or even when you arrive, and even when you arrive, it might be a non-arrival. And the underside of upper writing. So there's always this kind of latency. There's this hiddenness to things. So.
There's always a writing under the writing.
Yeah.
But when you lose that, maybe that's what a block is. I don't know. But it seemed very important at a certain point as I was working through this to find that voice again, to let it speak again. Yeah.
You found it, and it's got exuberance.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy piece of writing, but you know it worked. It did the trick.
I think the art images are very interestingly integrated, Brenda. It enhances the piece. They enhance the piece.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of work because I use Scrivener and it doesn't have inline images. So they were all carefully constructed tables that I then removed the borders of.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was a whole day putting those in and like fiddling. But yeah, I think it did work and it did help. I was a bit worried that the text was just a bit too fractured in its way and it didn't have certain kinds of cohesions to it, and that would keep you occupied and distract you while I was reading. The same with the text ornaments. So
I actually was lying down. Can you hear me?
yeah.
I actually was lying down with my eyes closed listening. And I had to get up and get some paper and a pen for 2 lines. 2 lines. There were so many wonderful lines, Brenda. I don't mean that there were just 2 lines. The first one that got me jumped up was "The blue lake of eternity catches fire." I loved that so much. It was an opening, you know, and that inspiration coming through. I loved that But the other one that requires more thought, I think, is the poet writes one poem. And I'm reminded of an article I read last week about Rothke, where he was saying that all poetry is the poetry of self-development. So could you talk about that?
Well, I was married to a poet for many years, Brian Henderson, and it really was his theory. Because he said that about his own writing. He said, I just keep writing the same poem. And I began to see that also. And when I was working through this block, I realized what I like most to write about is writing process and the self in terms of the words we use and how the words we use then create portraits of us. And this is kind of really my theme. So I think maybe we all do, whether, we might have many different writing styles, but there may be something that's very core that we are always working on in one way or another. And we keep deepening as we go, and we have a body of work. It is possible at the end of it for somebody to say their work is about, because there is this, we collect around something, or there's a magnet, there's something that I don't know what anybody else feels about that. If there's a kind of style that you do a lot, or there's a topic, or there's an area of lived experience that you keep kind of coming back to in different iterations and from different perspectives as you
Totally.
Sorry, Norman, your mic is off, Norman. We can't hear you. Oh, you don't. Okay. I thought I heard someone else start to speak.
Well, I've got a question for you, Brenda. In the poem, there is reference to speaking, to as well as writing, and there's a relationship between the two. And I know you know the critical theory of lying and parole really well. I'm just wondering how the critical theory that you know so well, did it help block you during those years? Did it in any way while you were writing this poem, did you go past some of those thoughts about, because language all comes from the same areas of the brain, Veronica's brain and Broca's brain, but writing is different. It's a distillation as opposed to, unless you're doing finished performance, as you do so well, where you're reading what you've written. Mm-hmm. You address that, the different, how critical theory either blocked you or unblocked you, and whether or not the writing speech distinction was done explicitly or consciously, or it just came out this way.
I went to a series of lecture that Julia Kristeva gave at the University of Toronto, and Mary Lou also went to the same set of lectures. I don't know if anybody else here did. On the and it was on the writings of who. And I think something in that lecture just got me thinking that we have a speaking voice and a writing voice. And, what are the connections there? Because when I'm chatting with somebody, this is not this is not writing, this is not sitting down to write. This is not writing moving through my head when I grab a piece of paper or, often just dictate. So yeah, and I think that was a big theme in Tidal Fury. And I forgot to bring my books I'm supposed to promote. It was a very large theme in Tidal Fury, which again was unsilencing the writing voice. And speaking voice, I really can't right now, John. Thank you, Laura. And in this piece, I'm back to that theme where you're moving between speech, voice, and writing text, words, and it was just working with all this, and then George Floyd. Like, I mean, wow. And so there's all kinds of places where I think it's got to be a parallel metaphors. So when I was eating the honeycomb and something got stuck, it also became part of the inability to write. The writing voice had been silenced, and then so when the writing voice is not silenced, or the writing under the writing can be written, or the who is within who writes can speak, it somehow also is part of the speaking voice. I don't know. We can talk about that in one of our Zoom get-togethers. Thank you, Sterling.
There's your book.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you dictate. I mean, based on John's question, I didn't know that you dictate.
Yeah. I often do that
as a writing. That's new information for me, Brenda.
I got an app called Dictate, and it just it saves right in the iCloud. So, and I mean, it's a bit garbled, but I can read it later. If I don't have my glasses on or anything, I use it a lot, actually. I use it a lot. I find, as my eyesight gets worse, that I'm listening to books, and I'm using, voice memo, and it kind of moving to another sense. And I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but an image comes to you. You can very quickly grab your phone and hit voice memo and keep it before it disappears. Okay, so we're going to go to Elana. Unless there's anything else, I don't think there is. And probably when you're reading,
share screen at this point.
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm going to be switching mics because I need to turn my AC back on. I'm getting very hot and it's too noisy with this beautiful mic, which I had for my salons. So if I disappear, don't, whatever. So Elana has published 6 solo collections of poetry with Guernica Editions, including Speak to Me in Trees, awarded the Bersani Prize for Poetry. And her most recent book is Swoon. And Elana is a brilliant woman, a brilliant writer and editor. She designs and facilitates social art courses. She's one of the most intelligent women you can talk to. She's very vivacious and present, and I admire her greatly. And I'm very, very happy to have her read a poem and talk about process. And if maybe, I'm not sure, let me see. Oh, advanced sharing options. Okay, Elana, you can share. And I'm going to mute all the mics again.
Okay.
Except wait, Elana, I have to unmute you now. Where are you?
I think I'm unmuted.
Okay, good.
Am I screen sharing though? That's the question.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm wondering.
Are you still here? Sorry, Elana, I need to have you unmute again. No. Are you unmuted?
I think I'm unmuted.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
But I'm just, yeah, okay. So there. You can't see the whole thing, but I'm going to scroll down. Thank you very much for that introduction. Very gracious, Brenda. I think I'm going to have to climb down from it. But thank you very much also for inviting me to present a piece. I'm going to start by reading this poem from my collection on. Can you see it? There it is. Looks backwards to me. It's Swoon. And it was launched virtually at the beginning of June. So I'm trying to promote as much as I can in these times. I'll start by just reading this piece, Surfacing Behavior, which refers to a group behavior demonstrated by whale cetaceans and leave the water, breaching, as it were, jumping out in order to breathe, and also it's thought to communicate. And in the poem, the title is operating on a few tracks, as you will see. So, surfacing behavior, Venevsky Pond, Trisht, Czech Republic. The pond alive with them, leaping, thwacking like paddles upon re-entry. The sound of it loud and out of the blue. You don't expect these fish, they look like carp, to breach like humpbacks. You don't expect this tranquil water to clap. I like the way you call from the car, roused as much as I am by the action. I am at the pond side with the camera, poised to shoot the proof. Swans are on the water also, white and pale gray juveniles, approaching. It's possible I've never had an accurate sense of distance, which is to say, I fear their teeth on my toes. I snap the jumpers, fish at once so fully of the water, oddly not. I capture golden bodies aloft, mid-wriggle, gleeful in the leaping, or at least it seems to me. Maybe it's display, a sign. Perhaps they're on their way to whale with imminent lungs and blowholes. It's possible I've never had an accurate sense of mystery, which is to say their realness is their glee. The swans emerging at the grass back me to the Škoda you haven't left. Anyhow, we're good to go. We've seen the small Czech town where young Franz Kafka came in summer to visit his uncle Siegfried, country doctor of Trisht, at that time Trish. Lay naked by the pond, he wrote, rode his uncle's motorcycle, herded cows and goats, played quoits, fell for a short-sighted girl by way of her fat, foreshortened legs, and went to temple. So that's surfacing behavior. And Brenda asked me to speak about my process, which is a huge topic, and it can encompass so many things. But in regard to this poem, I'd just like to say a few things about process as journey. The setting of the poem, back up to the top there, it's like, can we buy a vowel? The Czech language is short on vowels, and the consonants are also difficult. That Trisht. Yes, so the setting is Trisht, and this is a town located in the south central Czech Republic. My husband and I visited Trisht in August of 2017 as part of my ongoing Kafka quest. Franz Kafka has been a literary mentor to me since my teens, And since 2008, I should say we, my husband and I have slowly been retracing his steps together, where he lived, where he visited and sojourned and convalesced. And I've written about many of these steps in prose pieces. But some of the experiences, like this one in Trescht, begged the more highlighted, more compressed representation of a poem. I guess because there's something about the intersection of the magical, which is seeing a pond full of leaping fish, not knowing it's possible, and then just witnessing it. And then the more ordinary, namely driving in a car with one's husband. In fact, for the husband, it was so ordinary that he wasn't even interested in getting out of the car to get a closer look at the pond. Where back last century, young Franz Kafka swam and lay about up the pondside during his visit to his uncle Siegfried, the country doctor at Trescht. But from the car, my husband was nonetheless still roused a little bit by the action of the leaping fish, which to me felt amazingly like a sign from Kafka himself. I know this sounds silly, but this is an ongoing theme because wherever we go, I seem to get this kind of magical visitation in one form or another. So it felt like a kind of magical and also natural quirk of this surfacing behavior. So in the process of writing the poem, I worked at conveying the magic, hopefully it worked, and also my own naive delight. The naivete is no doubt there. And also in invoking something of the nature of the marital relationship, which is something that is also emerging through this journey. So the journey, the process, is a kind of a two-track process, and hence the couplets here. And then the phrase, anyhow, we're good to go, which is near the end. I'll just scroll down so you can see the end of it there. Yeah, 3 couplets from the end. Anyhow, we're good to go. It points to a tone that can arise after one has been driving for the whole day and one is tired and so forth, and perhaps a little bored. And it's a tone I'm familiar with. You know, it's like, we're here, we've seen it, okay, let's go. It's nice, but let's go. So there's at once this sort of admitting to an interest, perhaps a mild interest, but also allowing for some accommodation. And then there's the ending, okay, the part in the italics. And this is where I turn to Kafka himself. I'm actually condensing here and reordering and paraphrasing his words in a letter that he wrote in August of 1907 to his best friend, Max Brod, from his uncle Siegfried's place. And what I love about this is that you see in it a kind of the humor, that dry, slightly biting humor that comes through in the letters and more of the private correspondence and less so in Kafka's fiction. And of course, it's presented here in translation, not in the original German. And that is a whole other level of process. So I won't get into that, but yeah, just these few short words on process as journey. And that's that. I don't know, Brenda, if people ask questions or not at this point. How are we working?
I think we'll have a 15-minute break.
Makes sense.
And if there are questions during the break, and then for the other three, I call you guys features because to me you're the stars of the show. We'll have questions after at the end. I'm hoping that we have 15 minutes left at the end, and we can all talk.
Sure.
So I'm unmuting everybody now, or I'm asking to, and you can unmute. We're gonna have 15-minute break. We can chat. You know, you can take a break, whatever. Whoops, did I mute? Who did I? I thought I unmuted everybody.
I think some people are still muted.
Is Hill still here? Did Hill? Oh, there you are. Okay, how come everybody's still muted?
I'm
Not everyone is muted.
not muted, I don't think.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of, but Finn is show. Oh, you're Hill. No, but Finn left a note. Hill, sorry, I'm just trying to look at the chat box in the side so I don't cover people. So you said the poem writes one poem is yours? Two? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That was the thing that made me need to make a note.
Oh, yeah. I would attribute that to my ex-husband, I think. Although he didn't say that about anybody else's work, only his own. And it was a frustration at times that he felt, you know, he was a lyrical poet. He was whatever. So, yeah. But I don't think anybody actually owns that.
Oh, no, I meant it was the thing that caught my attention too.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good. Yeah. So, Elana, that was really interesting. So you said you have a 2-track process, which is exactly what? The 2 processes.
In this particular poem, I'm talking about how surfacing behavior is really working on 2 tracks. I'm referring here to the fish, which really was a magical thing. I didn't know that fish could breach like that, but this was really a pond full of breaching golden carp. And it was such a singular and magical thing. And of course, the surfacing behavior is also what is sort of bubbling up from underneath with the couple. Yeah. So there's definitely there are a few tracks, and there's probably other stuff going on there too.
Yeah. No, that was good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alan, you're muted, but we can see you. And
you don't want to hear
Sterling,
me cough.
Well, okay. No, we don't want to hear you cough, but we like to hear you talk or whatever. Sterling, you're muted.
Mm-hmm. So, Brenda, this whole topic of process is just so huge.
Oh no, I know, and I'm waiting
it's so huge that
else.
When I thought, speaking about one poem, how do I access it? So I just chose to use it as journey in this case because I'm on this Kafka quest. But I mean, it can really mean so many other things. I'm looking forward to what Michael and Margaret and Jeff have to say about process. They're probably coming from other angles. But it is, I mean, it can even be your writing practice, right?
Yeah.
Your process of coming to the work each day.
Yes.
how you write, where you write, and so
Yes,
forth. So
yes.
there's so many ways of accessing it. It's a very, very rich topic.
Yeah. Does anybody, yes, I completely agree. Like we could have a symposium. It is. But does anybody who's not offering a poem, who isn't reading today, who has something they want to talk about? Because this is open for you to talk about your process. In a succinct way. We're gonna restart. I don't know. I guess maybe in 5 minutes. Should I pick somebody to talk? How about you, Karen? You have a book out this year.
As she nods, not me.
Oh, Karen, I know you do tend to edit your poems for a long time. You once said that. You mentioned it in passing, and I always remembered that. So I know that you must write a poem and then sit with it and tinker with it. Is that right?
I'd more say that I'm just a very slow poet. Yeah.
You mean one line at a time, or do you write
one word at a time? I mean, often. I mean,
so do you have the structure of the poem, what it's about in mind? And then it comes out bit by bit, like the very first computers, they came in line by, or the moon landing came in line by line, right?
No, I mean, I think every poem for me has a different starting point. Some can start from an emotion, some can start from something I'd like to say, some can start from a word. It's all different. And I think for me, the poem really starts once I get the opening line. And then the opening line to me will determine how the poem's going to go. But then, of course, it could get changed. And sometimes, and sometimes I might start writing about something, and then it turns out that I haven't written about that thing, I've written about something else. So then I still might go back and try to write about what I intended to write about. But if I'm pleased with the poem, then I'll just say, okay, that's good enough. Like, I think every poem for me has a different process. I think, like Elana, when you were talking about process, to me, you spoke about the meaning of the poem more. I might not have been paying enough good attention to what you said, but it seems like you were
a little bit about the meaning and how I approach certain things, the couplets. I mean, there's so many more things I could say about it, but I really don't like to analyze my poems. I just like them to be out there and for people to receive them as they are and what they bring to them themselves. But in this case, it almost feels like I'm coming into a middle of a story, because I've been on this journey or in this process for so many years. And I've written so much about it that I'm just jumping in here to a moment.
Yeah, I liked hearing the backstory.
So I felt like I needed to give a little bit of the backstory, but the poem doesn't do that. It just says the pond allied with them, so you're plunged into the pond experience without really knowing anything. And only at the very end of the poem, you come to Franz Kafka.
Right. I think the poem really works. And even when you're talking about the poem, I think that like I totally got the poem. Actually, when people are reading their poems, or I am actually not reading along.
Yes.
Poet.
I was thinking of not putting up the screen share, but then I thought some people do like to hear, and also they like to have the visual. So I thought those who just want to have the auditory experience can close their eyes.
Yeah, that's sort of what, that's kind of what I was, that's kind of what I do actually. And then I can look back on the poem afterwards.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So this
it will
notion,
be-
Brenda, that you were saying earlier about writing one poem, perhaps it's not so much that we write one poem, the same poem, but that we have themes and we have concerns, and maybe we have a group of themes or concerns, and we riff on them, and they become interwoven. Yep. So we tap in at different parts of our lives, and we return to them from different angles, almost like a hologram, maybe.
Yeah. It's like how we remain who we are throughout our lives.
somewhere in there, as all the cells change.
Even though everything changes and you go through such life experiences, somebody you knew in grade school might recognize you, and I've had that happen. He said, "Oh, Brenda Clues." I didn't recognize her. She said, "We were in grade 5 or 6." When I arrived in grade 5, I think she said, "We were in grade 6 together." You mean you don't remember? So that was crazy. That was so long ago. So there is something that stays the same in us that we cohere around, and perhaps we do in our writing as well. It's just a really interesting.
So there's the other aspect of process when I was thinking about how to approach this thing and encapsulate it in under 10 minutes. I thought about process also in the way that I teach art. I always call it process art. And it works by step and an unfolding. So I can say, here's this is the introduction, this is the first step, this is how it unfolds into the second, and so forth. But poetry doesn't work that way for the most part. It doesn't do a step by step. It's all over the place, and it comes from all kinds of liminal places. And
it does. Like, I think if you're a fiction writer, you can set out to do a few thousand words a day. You can set an absolute routine. You write in the morning or you write in the after, whatever. But poetry is absolutely resistant to structure.
Yeah,
Remember reading about
to a rigid process.
Elizabeth Bishop tried so hard to get her muse to, and basically she wrote when it happened is when it happened. So it's an elusive art in many ways. You kind of have to catch it before it drifts off somewhere else. And I guess it's inspiration, something just sparks. And you go from there. You just find something that's very rich for you, and you follow it. Yeah. Okay, we should move on. I think I said Michael was after break. Okay. So Michael, you are up.
Break.
Unless you want to wait. I mean, it's up to you. You
no,
ready?
I'm ready, sure, yeah. I mean,
good. Okay, so I'm gonna mute everybody. And do you want to screen share, Michael?
I'm gonna try. I've never done it.
Okay, let me just double check I've got it. Okay, yeah, you can. I don't like to leave it open in case you get Zoom bombed,
I'm not muted. Do I have to mute at my end, Brenda? I guess so.
No, I'm doing it now. Bye. Okay, except for you, Michael. Now I have to find you here and unmute you. How's that, Michael?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
So we're not doing a screen share.
Yes, we can if you like.
Well, I've got the poem. I can put it on my screen.
Okay.
Does that work?
I mean, those of us who like to listen can close their eyes, and those who like to read along can read along. And is it in your book, in your new book? I didn't introduce you. Forgive me. Oh. So you were born in Italy and arrived in Canada at age of 5. That's a good way to put that, you know. Because I was born in Zimbabwe, but lived in Zambia and then England, and arrived here when I was 10. So Michael is a novelist, short story writer, poet, and playwright. He's written 2 novels, and the most recent book that he's had published is The Facility. And he's pretty.
Where did you get that? Where did you get that?
From Guernica.
Oh, you should have asked me for a bio.
So it's not. What's the new book?
I've written 5 novels, and since then, The Facility.
Oh my God! I thought everybody's from the net. I thought rather than like running after people, can you please send a bio? Can you please send a bio? I would just go online. All right. Well, the Berlin won the 2010 Bersani Prize and was a finalist for the 2009 Indie Book and National Best Books Awards. You can tell us how many collections of poetry and how many novels, because this is clearly an old bio, and I apologize.
I have it in front of me, but I won 2 other Bersani Prizes, one for the house on 14th Avenue, the poetry collection, and then a collection of short stories that called Lessons in Relationship Dyads in 2014, I think it was. 2016, sorry, won a Bersani Prize. My latest collection is going to be published in this fall, a speculative fiction collection called Paradise Island and Other Galaxies. That's with Exile. And then in the spring of 2021, poetry collection is going to be published, originally called Repositories, but now it looks like it's going to be called At the End of the World. And that's with Marty Gervais at Black Moss.
Congratulations.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, well, Michael is a prolific publisher. 30 titles a year, is that right?
Yeah, that's the bottom end, I think. I think we're publishing like 50 this year, which is.
Oh my goodness!
We picked the perfect year for publishing.
And you, Michael, you edit a lot of those books. You read a lot of manuscripts.
That's all I do. That's all I do. I haven't had a chance to read anything but manuscripts for the last. It's
just a phenomenal amount. Are you a workaholic?
No. Come now, you want to? You must have read my blog.
Do you sleep? Elana says
you read my blog
when
I was out in Vancouver, right? I had the day broken down from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, and you wrote the. As you said before, that's for writing. That's good for writing fiction. For poetry.
Yeah. It's like so remarkable, everything that you've done and do, and I think we would all like to emulate some of that.
Really?
But
okay.
we are who we are.
Yeah, emulate.
I don't know, admire. No. Everybody really just.
I'm happy. I'm happy to be able to do it, and
yeah.
I don't really. I'm not thinking about accolades or anything like that. It's just that, as I say quite often, talk about process and talk about. I mean, the whole idea. I was going to say to Elana. Of course, she knows that. The German title for the trial, right, is their process. we're all on trial, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to,
I'm not very good at explaining my poetry. I'm not very good at coming out with what the process is for a particular poem.
I think just the general, whatever it is,
Okay.
I don't think it doesn't have to be.
I want to read a poem.
Okay.
One poem, right? And then I'll talk about that poem a little bit and how it came about, and then we'll see. Anyway, I guess we can't share it on screen, so I'm.
Oh yes, you can.
I've got it here on the screen, but do I have to hit share screen?
Yes, you do. Yes. It's down at the bottom. Usually, it's green.
Yeah, I just clicked share screen, but I've got hold on.
And then you pick the screen.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Demeter makes plans to uproot herself. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. So.
All right. This poem was part of, I think it was one of the poetry pause poems for the League of Canadian Poets, sorry. And it's appearing in my collection. Anyway, Demeter makes plans to uproot herself. Already, umbilical cord intact, but with eyes downcast, the lamb she's fondling against her chest seems to understand what the rest of us keep at arm's length, often till our final breath. A mother's love, be it as genuine and sweet as myth, can only wrap itself around you for so long. The mossy path through the wood leaves footprints that slowly fill with seepage and mirrors of a turbid sky, memories of Escher woodcuts, Celtic magic buried as traps for Roman centurions, the furious buzz of flies rising as in some no-exit place. And then one god after the other tumbles out and prepares to take a stand, from minor to major, pissant to thunder, but always harping on the same note. Worship me, or else watch me turn into a serial killer. Watch me drag your children under. Satyrs and nymphs spring forth amid gnarled tree roots, spitting out earth and earthworms. They clear the way for a troop of trick-playing sheep and goats, lamb trailing a swollen-bellied mother. They waddle in elegant disarray, rushing towards the voice that they've come to trust, that calls to them now from a clearing in the trees, formed by a blast of well-placed lightning. One hand clutching grain, the other behind her back, where a glint of sunlight flicks off sharpened metal. Mare-headed Aganepe scatters her blessings staccato style as she stands on the steps of the self-consecrated temple she had her consort build in that clearing to separate herself from sacred law, eternal harvests, merciful destruction, and the endless hunger of needy partners. This is where, she tells you, lamb on her lap, she will spend the newborn winter, away from the rancid odor of spilled mead, palace intrigue, and thoughts of daughters dragged down to some twilight universe by horny demigods tired of gazing at their own reflections, and where, using her brother's always handy flamethrower to keep warm as snow eases all color and wolfish shadows gather, she will celebrate the joy of a newfound religion. Glass of red wine on the table and mutton stew gurgling on the pot-bellied stove. So that's the poem. Demeter makes plans to uproot herself. The idea for the poem, I was visiting some friends in someplace out east, and I went to a farm, where a friend of theirs has she raises sheep and all of this, and she was building a house in the woods away from the main home, where she was planning to do some writing, and so that's where the idea came from for the poem. There was just a kind of a magical place that she was in. She would run around, and the sheep would follow her, and she would feed them, toss them some food, and they would all, you know. But then she would also say, yeah, and then, you know, what you guys had for lunch was one of these animals that so that gave me the idea for you know, as since we're all crazy people anyway, that we can't take anything literally, can't take anything out there. I got the idea to make this into a more a mythical idea, a mythical poem. So that was, you know, what the poem, where it comes from. How it got that way, I have absolutely no idea. That maybe.
Michael, can you scroll the poem down so we can look at the beginning part too?
Sure.
Just a little bit. So yeah. So okay, don't let me interrupt you.
Nope, you can. I'm kind of just floundering around.
So anyway. do you write a bunch of ideas down or some images, and then it begins to grow from that? It
all depends. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
It all depends on the particular poem. Sometimes, like Karen was saying, there's sometimes it's just a feeling, some emotional thing, or sometimes it's an image. In this case, it was a set of circumstances. As you know, I was able to see like almost. I started to envision kind of a mythical place when I was there in the woods, you know, and it just came to me quite easily. But then the actual writing, I think, is a little different. I think one of the things that poets need to really be able to do it, you know, as opposed to just splattering a bunch of emotions on a page. You know, you need to be able to have a kind of a history of what's already been done, an idea of the past form. All of that needs to be there. And also the ability to manipulate words, as you showed in your poem, Brenda. You know, that's I think, in my opinion, very important to be very specific about things in a poem. You know, a poem has to it has to be like as if you've taken language and put it in a pot and kind of boiled it down to its essentials, to you know, as opposed to, let's say, writing a romance, for example, which is you just fly around all over the place and no matter what. But to me, you know, the more specific the language is in a poem, the more genuine and the more it affects me. I'm not crazy about poems that use abstract language in them. They just don't mean anything to me. I don't get them. But you know, I'm not saying that they're not necessarily bad poems. I just don't get them myself. But you know, so you need to have all that kind of background, I think, in order to write poems that have levels in them. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You want poems that have depth. There's the page, and then as you said as well, there's the writing behind the writing. There's also the effect that the writing can have on a reader. However, at that point you have to also say that the reader has to be fairly fluent and has to be able to grasp, understand what you're trying to get at in a poem. I mean, there's a surface level of a poem, that's fine. But if someone doesn't know, for example, who Escher is, then they've lost that in the poem. If someone doesn't know who Demeter is, then the whole thing falls apart, right?
The thing also is like poem can be like a body of knowledge. A book of poetry can actually contain an encyclopedia of knowledge, and it kind of carries it. So if you don't know who Escher is or Demeter is, then you go and look it up. And that enriches you. And I find in your writing, especially in this poem, there's incredibly rich references to very rich mythologies, and a way of constructing the landscape of the poetry, which is also a symbolic landscape as well in some ways. It's really well done. Another question I have is, do you work with meter or rhyme or do you have certain stanza length?
Not so much with rhyme, but I do work with meter. Usually just the typical, five note, it's fairly straightforward.
Because it gives it a music, So
at the same time, talking about the process and what happens in many cases as you start, when you first start writing poetry, at least when I first started writing poetry, I was writing the individual poem. That was my concern, was how did this, what we talked about, okay, the poet writes the same poem but the way I look at it is that the poet writes a poem that gets closer and closer and closer to the thing as it is. And the thing as it is something that it's not out there in the physical world necessarily. Poets create their own world, but at the same time, that world has to connect in some way or other with the thing as it is. And so the words themselves, you have to try to get closer and closer. You never will. You never will reach that point. I mean, language is symbolic. So we're talking about something that it's not going to. You're not going to become part of that world, as it were. But I wrote a poem once about saying you write the same thing over and over and over again, like a dumb student who just doesn't get it, and that's in some ways that's what we are. Poets are dumb in that sense. We don't get it. We don't. I mean, here we are. We spend our lives just looking at things and look. Why don't we just live our lives? Why don't we just do like a lot of people and just enjoy ourselves and get out there? Just do it. But no, we can't, because then the way I look at it, someone asked me, "What would you do if you weren't a writer?" I think I'd be a void. I think I would not exist. This is the kind of scary thing when you think about it. It's like, no, that's a question that you can't even ask me, because it doesn't compute. in some
Yeah,
way.
and poets also can express the emotional terrain of a culture or a time.
Yeah.
Sort of carry the spirit of.
Well,
So and
be
that's
careful about
something
those kinds
that
of
that
words.
politicians don't have, and
Yeah.
historians don't have, and
Yeah.
the poet can.
A poet, what does a poet do is the question, right? But the poet does nothing really. And when you think about it, the poet does nothing. The poet just spends her life, their life, just taking words, putting them on a page, and hoping in some way or other that A, the words make sense, and B, the words connect, and C, in some way or other, you're making, you're helping, as you say, the culture, or creating something in humanity that is not there in evolutionary terms. It's not there in the sense of just one more animal, one more mammal moving through the universe, right? Anyway, I think we've gone a little beyond the process here. So
We're talking about poetry, but this poem, your work has got so much knowledge and learning in it. So it's something you can't. It had to come up, Michael. Sorry. And I mean that's beautiful. That's makes.
Well, some people complain that they don't understand the poems because of that. It's well, this one here is pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated poem.
You've got the opportunity. You can go look it up. The opposite end would be poetry that's just imagery or
which is fine as well.
Postmodern poetry, whatever.
Language poetry.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, it's.
Okay, I think we are going to move on, but I know people have questions for you. But please keep your questions till the end. And we're going to go to Margaret now. How do I? Oh, can you stop sharing the screen, Michael?
Let me see what I can do here.
So I think you go up to the top, and it says.
Stop share. I got it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, Margaret, I may have an outdated bio for you too. Let me see here. Just let me find Margaret on my list and unmute Margaret. And then Michael's muted. Are you unmuted? No, you're not unmuted, Margaret. Try again. There we go. Yeah. I may have an outdated bio for you too. I don't think I'll do this again. I'll just get people to send them. You were born in Sudbury and grew up there, right? And you're a poet, writer, editor, instructor, and poetry culture builder in Toronto since the 1980s, and that is for sure. You're like a force in yourself. 9 collections of poetry. Is that correct?
Yes.
10? And you were shortlisted for the Trillium Book Award and the Pat Lowther Memorial Award, and a recipient of the Relit Award for Poetry and the Bliss Carman Award. And Charger is your latest.
That's
Are you going to read from Charger?
I think so.
Okay. So I got your bios from your website and from the prison. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, Margaret is one of the most articulate women I have ever had the pleasure to meet, even though I mostly meet her on Zoom. She's got a divergent, wide-ranging artistic practice, writing practice, photography, and some visual art. She teaches creative writing at the University of Guelph. She's just a very alive, another very brilliant woman. I'm so happy to have you. And are you going to share screen or?
I'm not. I'm not
okay. That's
technology that way. And
yeah, I'm gonna turn that off then.
Yeah. I don't have a text to show people.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm not really sure. I haven't really landed on what I want to read here.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, the context keeps shifting as.
Oh, just wait a minute. I did it again. Sorry, we have to unmute. There were some new participants, and I just wanted to. Are you okay now?
I have a voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. It's just much better if everybody's muted because then it keeps the screen on you.
For sure. So first of all, I just wanted to make a few comments about your piece, Brenda, which is still kind of reverberating for me. Your presentation was so theatrical. It's a way that I never use my voice, and I find it so immersive and strange, foreign in that sense of affect, that I found it really, really interesting to think about what it is that, this idea of the interiority of the self, the writer's self. Who is she within? How does she emerge? Who is this voice in a space outside the body? And who is this voice in a space outside the body that is also dramatized as a kind of figure apart from the self, which I think is partly what you were doing in your dramatization of the text. The line that really struck me was, "It all tilted today."
Yeah.
I think was the first line when you moved into discussing George Floyd's funeral and Black Lives Matter, movement. And but that the sentence itself, "It all tilted today," I just think is such a beautiful unit, sonically, and also the spatial metaphor of, tipping and being somehow reoriented to the entire world and ourselves. That really touched me. It also seemed to me to overlayer the idea of literally carrying a coffin, and that coffin tilting the world around it, or being at the brink of tilting itself. And that's basically the way I hear poetry. I hear sonic units, I think, far more than I hear kind of metaphorical or metonymical units on first hearing. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to read. And I think it does probably make sense to just read a piece from Charger, because it's a new book. It came out in March, and then came out with Talon Books, and haven't really gotten to launch it. But I think it's kind of a text I'd like to share tonight. And I just feel like my poetics maybe are coming from a different practice than perhaps some of the other poetry that we've heard. And I think locating ourselves in relationship to, the kind of ways we've thought about poetry is is really important. I mean, Daphne Marlatt, for example, is, you know, a kind of poet whose attention to listening and to sonic micro events has always been extremely, it's not even interesting, it's generative for me. Like, that's kind of how I am as a writer. I'm listening to silence and to that difficulty of not being able to write or not have a voice. So I really very much, I'm very moved by this sense of not having written for 9 years. I think I would have suicided. I would have. So I don't have the experience you've had in relation to not turning back into writing. But I definitely can empathize and relate to the, you know, the calamity or the dilemma of not being able to write poetically. I find that very moving.
Thank you. Thank you.
The piece that you talked about, you know, who in me writes? Well, I felt like there was this double figure in your piece where there's a lot about the self and its incapacity to write, but there's also this other relationship with the lover. I mean, there's a lot of erotic kind of location of the self in relation to the other in your piece, and it's kind of like two strands that emerge at the same time, which sort of suggests at least two or maybe many more tracks for how writing emerges and why it emerges.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll just read a piece from Charger. It makes a few comments. The thing that slides over every other sounding charges us. That afternoon, I could have interrupted our rose garden party and demanded a justice of the peace, someone nuptial in official garb, before vowing to always let you know my heart's aspirations, but didn't. Let it all just bloom. Imagine the scowl on my face as I write this now, with you poem bombing what is supposed to unsnarl several other related losses. My parents' final words, our son's friends' last breaths, the sun's partial eclipse by a greedy moon, almost in the right place at the right time, ready to wreak maximum drama, and everybody being miserable, stewing in memory, which is an ovoid gray lake lashing at the shore under this dock, leavening my heart through its steady glamour of living, 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 wonder of being fully juiced. We sense the sounding of a swayed day's wind pushing at our inhalations, then slow, luxurious exhalations, and repeat, keep repeating, keep the inhale sliding soft over the exhale and repeating. Even if twisting his waist in the Suburban at Dairy Queen made him pant, and there was no camouflaging the coped anymore from the kids. What we know about being alive when we are alive is like a lunch gong going off in the canyon. Get our butts home now because it's ready for us. She gets my email, 1998, as our small feet hit the black rock, 1971. We Facebook send a photo, 2007, with the chocolate cream cake from Johnny's I Know He's Coming, 1976. I 3D print them, 2019 grilled cheese open face sandwiches, 1973. The black burnt film on top, pure carbon, alongside her coral lipstick tube on the counter, 1972. They set Spotify 2015 to We Are the Champions, 1978. Let you live stream the damn eclipse. Tell you one more time about the steely gray-green sky that morning, 20 August 1970, when the winds hit, when the hurricane sent us scrambling to the basement, when sunlight disappeared long enough to blindside roofs and fizzle power. There's a spaceship on Ramsey's southwest end, still convincing with its surcharge of future vision. Can we admit now how radical such a vessel remains for forthcoming generations' belief there will become a future? My North Shore heart's fuel includes this view, you and our children's shared time travels across the 20-odd decent years you accompanied me through the motions. I wish you well, 2026. We'll see you in some afterworld, but not again in the middle camp's flickering birch shade near the decapitated black-eyed Susan Grove, a half-turn from the ancient crabapple, with our broken common law amidst the inhale of all that charged us, our slow slide over the exhale, still here.
Wow.
So that piece is set in Sudbury and was written pretty much, I guess, maybe 5 years ago up in Sudbury, where I go every year in the summer. And today is the 50th anniversary of the hurricane and the tornado that I experienced as a girl. And you know, weather, being in relation to environment, I think is a really long-standing kind of generative piece of my attentional procedure when it comes to moving into writing. Writing outdoors is often a very different experience from writing indoors, and I often try to go to an outdoor space to write. This kind of poetic of, I guess, moving across a poetic space is one I think I've extended from open field poetics that I was exposed to when I was a very young writer. So it's it makes sense that I would still sort of inhabit that kind of spatial metaphor of what it is to compose. So I just want to read one other piece that I wrote in May during the pandemic. And I think for all of us, we had this shock to our, reality, but also our own narrative of what it meant to be a writer in public, because our public kind of disappeared. I don't know if for others of us that really speaks, but I've missed enormously the kind of sociality that occurs in reading spaces and being among other bodies, experiencing poetry together. This is interesting, but it's different.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just kind of wanted to honor that by maybe sharing a piece that, is basically very, unedited. It's the kind of writing I was doing during the pandemic. I think a fragment, thinks another, means to hook them up in a quickie, but time is a faster wit. I catch your satellite appetite for a body to become re-embodied. I have a body also, a fervorous attitude at the bridge's hang. Overlook the risen waters, cast an eye toward the submerger of gas station and community garden. Sky's white stream suggesting modern flight may resume. Can I take another's hand in my mouths, resolute forgetfulness, like a piece of graffiti left for the gray street gulls, a hand scrawled in my intestine, patch of rash on my neck's back, a preference for gelato over cunnilingo for the moment. I think a bunch of fragmentary licks. I put them under my tongue, squeeze juice from a lemon. I resolve to watch each plane, stadiums of soaked victims, reservoirs where towels pile, scattered blue gloves, maelstrom of the lonely thirst for someone else online at 4 a.m., someone else's ribcage in my fist. I fragment your body the way memory usually declines my bank card. All the rooftops are dry, a savanna of the upper balconies, an airborne motorboat loaded with paddles. Half the scene is waves, half dusk, black-tailed squirrels in fairy wings suspended in precinct sightlines. Local mosquito swarms surrounding the roadkill. Wake from the grisly Netflix redux, sift the name of a street kid into your magnanimous skin. I think a fragmentary poem. I want my sister. Can't put the plane on a descending arc on the other side. 19 million children in Bengal awaiting a cyclone. A novel viral dance of this spring.
Fabulous. Yeah.
So that's the way my poems were coming out in the spring. Sort of almost hypnagogic, you know, that waking space.
I liked what you said about open field poetic. Very much, but my God, the way you read, I could listen to you read like for a whole evening. I mean, you wouldn't, you know, probably, it's your reading is just phenomenal. There's something very musical about it. There's a cadence, and yet it's not musical reading. Do you know what I'm? It may be what's in the open field.
I think. I mean, I you know, I had B.P. Nicol, Daphne Marlett, Fred Waugh, people like this from the 70s, 60s, 70s. I don't know, apprentice the way I hear language. So
yeah.
Well, I think all of our traditions are interesting. The way all of our traditions kind of merge and overlap, and I'm always interested in where people's poetics kind of first emerged, and certainly the way your poetic emerged after this very long period of being muted.
Yeah. I mean, I did write, but it wasn't. You know, you know when you're not. You're just, you know how to do it, but you're not writing. What was the name of the first poem you read? That was an incredible poem.
I think it was Charger 11. Charger is just 12 poems and then a coda, and they're all called.
So was it the poem of your marriage? Was it that you were 20 years?
This is a poem. Yeah, it. You know, once very long time ago, Di Brandt read a poem at a public reading that was to her ex-partner about. It was kind of like a gift back to this incredibly, you know, having somehow gone through this together. And I was stunned. I thought, wow, that's an incredible emotional place to be in, that you could do that. It's taken me a very long time to do that, but
it is an incredible poem.
It is my moment of you know, addressing that particular.
I'm so glad we have it on video, Margaret. It was incredible to listen to, and then as you came towards the end, it was this was the relationship from beginning to end. I mean, it hasn't ended, but it was a tour de force. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
And it had
particular because of the 50th anniversary of the hurricane.
yeah.
Deserves an occasion.
It had so many intricacies in it, though, from the beginning to it was just I'm really when I have your book, I will look forward to reading that. But that was amazing. We should probably move on to Jeff. And thank you so much, Margaret. So glad you came. Everybody's still muted, but I know they would all be, for you and Michael. But Jeff is in the wings waiting, and then we'll open everything up. So I'm going to mute everybody again, and then I'm going to find Jeff on this list and ask to unmute Jeff.
There we go. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to want to share screen?
I've never done that before.
Okay, so we won't. I've got it turned off right now. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know how much. I don't know how much it would help to see it on the page because it's not a villanelle or a sonnet. There's no tight structure that needs to be analyzed, but it's so.
Jeff, I need to do. Jeff is an award-nominated journalist by day, performance poet, and classic film nerd by night, and that is true. Who likes to make audiences laugh, cringe, or preferably both. His performance style is influenced by slam conventions, but subverts them with wit, ironic humor, and a satirical tone. And he's done readings in Ireland, England, France, and now you're zooming all over the world.
Yeah, Zoom has taken me to Australia 3 times this week. And,
he's authored 4 chapbooks of short fiction and satirical monologues, and 3 spoken word CDs. And in 2010, he took his one-man show, Grouch, which must have been amazing, on a Grouch toured 3 Ontario cities. So I'm very happy to have you, Jeff. Now you can go ahead.
Just one little thing that's outdated. I used to be a journalist, but the company I work for some reason, doesn't want me to do journalism anymore. So now I write bullshit advertorials about industrial equipment for some reason.
Oh no more reviews of Shakespeare in the Park.
Oh, well, that's a different thing. I was doing theater reviews up until December, and then I've been focusing on my novel this year.
Yeah. And there's no theater right now anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was doing theater reviews up to December, but not getting paid almost nothing for it. So it's not like a phony, of course. Okay. So on the theme of writer's block, the poem I'm going to do, everybody gets writer's block, I'm assuming. Like everybody at least lacks inspiration once in a while. But you know what? Even the great poets, it's not just us, even the great famous timeless poets, even the great World War I poet Wilfred Owen, I bet he got writer's block once in a while. I bet he struggled with inspiration occasionally. So this is called Wilfred Owen's Off Day. Damn this war! Oh, the pity of it. The pity. What pity? It's all just so very, very bad. I just get so sick of it all. So many atrocities and stuff. Those cannons are too bloody loud, and so are the planes. Those planes, they're all so plain full of it. Damn this war. Oh, damn this war to hell. I don't like it very much. I don't like all the corpses. Oh, those smelly, smelly corpses. And the fellow marching over there has stupid boots. And the food rations, now they leave something to be desired too. And we're all bent double, just like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, cursing through... Wait, I've done that bit before. All the dead. So many dead around here. Short days ago, they lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and no, now I'm cribbing from the Canadian fellow. Damn this war! Maybe I ought to throw in some Latin? Dulce e decorum est, conditus manducare pupillem? Nolite te bastardis carborundum? Deformes stultes est et infantibus assimilatur? Ipso facto veni vidi vici, voulez-vous coucher avec mon gaufre fou? Damn this war! It's all a load of crap and bad things, like a bad thing that nobody likes because it's so bad as a piece of stinking war. Damn this war! Fuck this shit. Just shoot me now, you Hun swines. That was Wilfred Owen's off day.
Oh, Jeff, what would we do without you? Wilfred only knew.
What makes you think he didn't? Maybe I cribbed that from him.
Yeah,
It's from his lost letters, found in a battlefield in France.
Yeah.
So on the discussion of the process of that, I don't know how deep you'll consider this, but basically the inspiration behind this was from a friend of mine in London, England, that is, a poet named Niall O'Sullivan, who runs a series over there. And I went to one of his shows a couple years ago, and he was talking about how he teaches poetry as well, and he teaches Wilfred Owen. And he was just basically summarizing, well, he had this kind of poetry, and he had the damn this war poetry. So he had this, and he had damn this war. And I just thought it was really funny the way this great body of work, this oeuvre, he just boiled it down to just damn this war. And so I kind of started from there, and I just thought that was really funny. And I thought, well, what if Wilfred Owen, had no inspiration? He'd be stuck there. Damn this war. And it just kind of wrote itself from there. And I just, took ideas from Dulce Decorum Est and other war poems, and just, kind of improvised on paper from there, I guess.
No, it was a great riff, and almost a skit. But now that I know your inspiration, because often there is something that you read or you hear or you go to a lecture like I did with Christeva or whatever that just sparks something.
Yeah.
And we kind of riff off each other.
Yeah.
It is like an impromptu, jazz band or whatever. You play something and then it strikes a note, and I go off, and there is this wonderful sense in poetry that we inspire each other. We really do. And with Margaret, with Daphne Marlett, and what's her name? Had the poem about her ex. Anyway.
Alanis Morissette.
No.
She did a poem about an ex.
Yeah. So yeah. I think and then the way you've developed and cultivated your style it's half humor writing. I mean, Monty Python, you know.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
there's the ridiculous and the sublime at the same time, often in what you're doing, and like a satirical poetry that's not terribly unkind. You know, it's yeah.
that depends on the mood you're in, you know, like if you're really angry or really insecure, you know, you can have a lot of anger or insecurity buried under, you know, a comedic surface. But
I guess.
I think it's good to I think it's good to get inspiration from all kinds of sources, all kinds of art forms. And there are poetry purists who say, no, you know, poetry is, I could name people, but I'm not into the shaming thing. But, you know, it has to be only poetry. It's a pure art form. It's a sacred art form. We mustn't sully it with other kinds of art forms. And I say, why? That's so limiting. Why can't poetry take ideas from sketch comedy? Why can't fiction take ideas from, you know, why can't poetry take ideas from music even? Poetry is kind of a verbal music. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of my early, you know, spoken word pieces were kind of monologue form. They were kind of like The Onion, almost, like they did editorials. So they were kind of influenced by that a lot, and I still do that once in a while. Ironically, like, you know, a lot of my spoken word stuff is actually I write it in prose, and then I kind of pretend it's poetry when I perform it. This one in particular, actually, I did write in poetic form, although in a very free way. Again, no structure or anything, just a very free verse kind of thing, because it's about a poet, so I might as well do it as a poem. But yeah, I mean, I think different art forms should influence each other. Like, why not turn a poem into a Monty Python sketch? Why not, you know, turn a short story into a poem? Or
do you have poetry that you wouldn't perform? Because you are a performance poet, you really are. But do you write poetry that's more personal, maybe, and that
I did
don't work up into a type of sketch? Like, I mean, I know your TTC poems were hilarious. You know, you have so many poems that. But do you have any secret writing?
I did write some very, very bad literary poetry when I was in high school and university, and it's the weirdest thing because spoken word was kind of something I stumbled into like 20 years ago because I wanted to be a fiction writer, and I haven't given up that dream yet. I've been working on a novel the last couple of years, but like York University in the 90s told me I didn't have what it takes to be a novelist because I didn't want to be a second-rate Michael Ondaatje. That's what they wanted everybody to be. But I still had short stories that I wanted to somehow, you know, publicize. I started going to open mics, like poetry and spoken word open mics, and reading bits of stories and whatnot. And then I saw, like, you know, people like, you know, at the time, Monica Kubler was pretty big in Toronto then, Cynthia Gould, Wakefield Brewster was just kind of starting out, and Mark Rubinoff had the Bite series. So I was going to these and seeing these cool people, and I was like, you know, I want to do that, but I want to do it my way. Yeah. That was kind of my attitude. So I started doing that, and of course, when I started doing it my way, there were all these snobs who were like, no, that's not how you do poetry, Jeff. Poetry is, you have to do it A-B, you know, with metaphors and it's concrete sensory imagery. And I understood what they were saying because I've studied poetry and all that stuff, and I feel like I could write that kind of stuff if I wanted to, but most of the time I don't want to. It's just so much more fun.
No, we don't want you to change.
Oh, good.
No.
Tell the Governor General's award committees, you know, that you can't change them. So
I was just curious because your pieces really seem written to be performed and definitely not read. And that's what it was, just a question, you know.
The funny thing is, I do write for the page first. I write for the page first, and then when I start off reading them at open mics or whatever, and the performance kind of comes out naturally anyway, but they're written for the page first. And then I find when I do them in open mics, if they go over well and if they have dramatic potential, I'll change them into a performance piece. You know, I'll even I'll even memorize them if I think, you know, it's worth the trouble to perform it as a theatrical kind of piece. Now, the one I did tonight, I haven't memorized it, but I kind of wrote it with performance in mind, funnily enough. I wrote it with hearing my Wilfred Owen character, and that's how I would say it and whatnot. So, I mean, it kind of becomes a performance poem anyway, even though I haven't memorized it or blocked it out or anything.
Do you find when you memorize the poem and start performing it that you keep rewriting it?
Oh yeah, I've definitely done that. I mean, again, the way stand-up comedians might do, or sketch performers. I know Second City. City like revises their stuff that way. But I find I'll change a line or I'll change a joke, just based on audience reaction and see.
I got into memorizing a lot of title theory, and in fact, I did one performance that was an hour of the first part of title theory, where I dressed up. So Medusa, I had my Medusa wig on, and just different characters in it. And the worst part was I just kept revising the poems, and they got simplified and changed from what was actually in the book, so that I would have to say that the performance version differs from what you read in the book, because I keep editing it in different ways, changing it because of audience reaction. For sure. It's just a very interesting process of writing poetry. Is once you memorize and you go, oh my God, that doesn't work, you change it, and then you perform it for an audience, and you see, it would be they would get it much better if I changed it. It just keeps evolving, and it's frustrating and interesting.
Even without a live audience, I mean, they say a work of art is never completed; it's only abandoned. So I mean, an audience can help you get that feedback on what to change, because it's an immediate reaction.
And they don't actually have to say anything. It's just the looks.
Or
you can feel it. You can feel when there's an engagement and when there's less of one.
And part of it is sometimes it's really subjective too. You'll get different reactions from different audiences. I remember back in 2005, I did a gig in Vancouver in T. Paul St. Marie's series. 2005, and I began my set with a cover poem by Monica Kubler that was very slam-centric and very serious. We are poets and ba-ba-da-ba-da, and all that, very serious and very, oh, and that was exactly what they wanted, because it's Vancouver. They love that stuff. So I got the standard reaction from that, all that kind of stuff. And then for the rest of the set, I did my own work, got jack shit. Nothing.
Ouch.
Nothing. And the feel I got from the room was not so much that they didn't like it, as that they were kind of going, no, Jeff, that's not how we do it in Vancouver. And then I was followed by all these, standard slam performances. We're really loud and political and not in your face. And then, okay, I get what they wanted.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's like 9:15. I hate to cut you short, but I think we're going to go to whoever's still around. I understand if, it's been a bit long. You can unmute yourself and turn your video on. If you want to take a break, I probably need to take one. We can come back and talk for a bit longer if you're up for it.
I'm booked to do an open mic in New York that started 14 minutes ago. So
okay.
I'm sure I wasn't first or anything. So.
You should have told me. I would have.
No, it's okay.
Earlier.
This is more important.
Okay. I'm sorry you won't be here for people to ask you questions.
I suppose I could be. I normally get an email saying what part of the order I'm on, but I didn't get the email.
It's okay, because I think we're all pretty tired.
Yeah.
Thank
you for your reading, Jeff. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret, too. I didn't
Oh,
get to say
Margaret.
thank you.
Margaret,
And Michael.
thank you so much. Thank you, Michael.
And Michael.
Thank you,
Oh,
Ilana.
Michael. You know, I wanted to unmute everybody after everybody's reading, but we would have been 10 o'clock by now if I'd done that. But I'm just
Great.
gonna take a short break here, and if you wanna like ask each other questions or express reaction to somebody's reading, that would be good. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey, Brenda. Good.
Absolutely beautiful readings from everybody and talks. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Welcome.
Margaret, I wanted to say that the word memory came through in both of the pieces you read. And you didn't talk about the place of memory in your writing, but it recurs. So I figure it must be one of your concerns. And in fact, you have a beautiful image. I wrote it down here from Charger. Memory, which is an ovoid gray lake. To me, that really popped out. It has of course, it has the sonic, the sonorous aspect, but it's also a metaphor. Yeah. Even though you say you don't tune in so much to metaphor, but rather maybe the sonic unit, but you've got both there. So I thought maybe you could speak about that a little bit, about that metaphor and the place of memory, seeing that it seemed to be prominent in both pieces.
Yeah, I think the lake, the idea of the lake is, very specific because I grew up on Ramsey Lake in Sudbury. So the sense of that particular landscape and its relationship to my grandmother's, she came from a village in Greece that was basically a port village, a very, very tiny port village. And there's something about when I go back to Sudbury, you talk about you use the idea of the journey. There's this cyclical journey that I, conduct in an ongoing way. I think that metaphor is, anyone who's a poet is in the land of metaphor. You can't not be there. You can't not understand poetry as emerging from language's ability to play itself out through metaphor. That's what language is. But the lake in particular, thinking that when I wrote a lot of Charger, I wrote when my mom was in a nursing home on the other side of the lake, actually. And so now there's a whole other set of associations I have with being at that lake, being in the place of vigil. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We all have our very, very deeply important parts of land or water or season, or we all have that. And it's, it's sort of secret, but it's also really connective.
So the lake, even though it appears as a metaphor in the poem, this is an actual literal lake that you're speaking about.
Yeah, and I think there's several of the other poems that
have it as well.
Well, this one does refer to Ramsey. I talk about the Science Center up in Sudbury. There's this amazing architectural structure in the shape of a snowflake sort of spaceship that was actually just fabulous, built in the 70s. And so that's a very specific reference to being there. But also I have 3 kids, and I basically, they weren't raised there, they were visitors to that space. So there's the way in which we have our own direct and fidelity to places and spaces, and then there's the way that we pass those on to, in my case, to my kids who now sort of narrate their childhood through visits to that same lake.
Yeah, I find this this whole thing of a metaphor and what we can take metaphorically or mythically and what we can take literally. Michael is not here anymore, but he made this pronouncement that you can't take anything literally. And I wanted to ask him about that. Of course, I can't now because he's not here, but I'm wondering, can we do that? Can we take things literally, or is just language all metaphor? Is it all metaphorical? So this is just putting it out there because
you have actual whales in your poem.
I do.
And the whales are not meant simply to be symbolic. They are actual whales that are interesting on their own right. I think
in my poem, I guess it's actual fish that look like carp that I'm imagining metamorphosing into whales. But I think of my right as my the whole thing of taking the photograph in order to freeze the moment so that it can be proof that I actually saw the fish leap. So I am playing with this idea of like, what is literal, what is provable, what is there, and then what is metaphorical. They all seem to be sort of juxtaposed in my mind and my poetry, but things have been a little shaken up this evening by our talk.
If nobody has a question for me or anything, I'm gonna hop a plane to New York, a Zoom plane. So
thank you for making us laugh, Jeff.
Thank you.
We need to laugh.
That was great. I really, really enjoyed. Your poem was crazy, like really.
Thank you.
And fun, and I loved what you had to say too. So have a good Zoom to New York.
Thank you.
Zoom well.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So.
Yeah, you going, Karen? Yeah, and Jennifer, you. Yeah.